All visuals in this video are illustrated. 4 logos appear on screen.
The United Nations Human Rights Office created a toolkit for policymakers with a roadmap to develop laws, policies and programs to realize the Sustainable Development Goals and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities.
A group of houses, next to them a group of buildings.
Our home, neighborhood, city, town or village influence very deeply our experiences in the community, school, work and across our social life.
Many elements that define a city appear.
Public parks and spaces, housing, public and private buildings and public transportation are key for every person to enjoy a full range of opportunities and experiences in their communities.
Alicia lives with her family in public housing.
Alicia, using a wheelchair, is next to her family and they ride a public housing building with many sets of stairs.
Their apartment is on the 2nd floor, and her father has to carry her up and down the stairs.
Alicia is all by herself at the apartment. A clock ticks the passing hours.
Alicia hardly leaves the house as her father works all day.
Chaufa and Artit work together.
Chaufa uses dark glasses and a cane. Artit is in a wheelchair.
Every day, Chaufa helps Artit get ready. Chau receives no payment for this work.
A coin gets crossed out.
On the way to work, both struggle with the sidewalks, which are full of obstacles for their cane and wheelchair.
Chaufa and Artit face many challenges as they move around the city.
They usually risk their safety and devices by using the street rather than the sidewalk.
Chaufa and Artit arrive at a bus stop.
Buses are not accessible, and they depend on the goodwill of other passengers to get on.
A group of passengers help them get on the bus.
They were threatened with being fired if they arrive late to work one more time.
A human figure expresses dissatisfaction as Chaufa and Artit arrive to work. A clock ticks the passing hours.
Aminata is the mother of 7-year-old Julius, who uses a wheelchair. Her husband has been abusive for several years, and after a very serious incident, she decided to leave. The women's shelter is not wheelchair accessible, and they tell her that they cannot take her with her son. The homeless shelter is not accessible either.
The figures of Aminata and Julius are oriented towards 2 buildings. Both buildings eventually get crossed out.
They have been living in the street for a month now.
Aminata and Julius are stranded on an unwelcoming street. She cuddles her son, the wheelchair, at their side.
She's very scared of what will happen to both herself and her son. This needs to change. How?
The screen is divided into 3 sections. On the left, icons representing justice. In the middle, 3 currency bills, a ramp and an elevator. On the right, 3 accessible buildings.
All urban planning laws need to include accessibility standards for new buildings and develop time-bound plans to make existing buildings accessible.
Alicia uses a ramp to access her home on her own. She has dinner with her family.
Social housing programs should include people with disabilities and prioritize accessibility as well as access to financial aid that accounts for disability-related costs.
On the right side of the screen, many coins appear.
There must be coordination among government sectors in charge of providing human support, assistive technology, accessibility of open spaces and transportation to achieve inclusive urban planning.
On the left, a public building. In the middle, a handshake. On the right, an accessible bus stop, ramps and mobility devices.
Some persons with disabilities need human support in their homes.
Artit rests at his home, assisted by Aminata.
And may also require support outside of their homes if the environment is inaccessible.
She also helps Artit to get ready for work. Artit successfully gets to work by his own means.
Assistive technology that's appropriate to the context increases functionality and independence and may help to overcome barriers in the environment.
Improving accessibility in open spaces and transportation helps to reduce the need for personalized support.
Alicia successfully takes a bus in an accessible bus stop.
Governments should address homelessness of people with disabilities by ensuring that social services like shelters are accessible and inclusive of their needs, which also applies for services and support against gender-based violence.
Aminata and Julius are welcomed in an accessible domestic violence shelter.
Policy decisions about accessibility of public facilities and transportation should be made with the effective participation of persons with disabilities.
Chaufa confidently walks through a museum and a park and takes an accessible bus.
Next stop, inclusion.
Let's make our communities accessible.
United Nations Human Rights Policy Guideline on Inclusive Cities and Settlements.